I am Flavia Bellieni Zimmermann from the Australian of International Affairs in Western Australia, and today we have with us Dr. Max De Vietri. Dr. Max, he is an advisor for African geopolitics, and he is associated with the University of Western Australia African Research Cluster and with the Center for Muslim States and Societies. Today we'll be discussing geopolitics versus international relations, an African perspective. Thank you for being with us, Dr. De Vietri.
Thank you, Fabio. My pleasure.
Dr. De Vietri, can you please explain the difference between objective geopolitics and subjective international relations, particularly when dealing with the African continent?
Thank you, Fabio. The terms geopolitics and international relations have been misused, and I think they've been misused and by common usage have become interchangeable. By tradition, geopolitics is a social science. It deals with the objective study of the interaction of groups of humans, small to large groups, on the surface of the earth. So it's politics and geography. It deals with the big picture. On the other hand, international relations is a practice. It's a political tool, if you want, used by groups of humans and refers usually to the formal states and to evaluate their relationship to one another and in order to influence both the situation or maybe come to a specific action or specific outcome. In dealing with Africa, if you want to look at it geopolitically, we can study the past and recent history of a specific country to come to a conclusion as to its present social and political character and its relationship to its neighbours or near and far, or to a specific industry, as I've done in my own case. If we were to review the same scenario in terms of international relations, we would evaluate and take a specific terms, look at the specific terms, the costs and the benefits to another country, Australia, to Australian industry players, and what would mean to the Australian state for its standing in the international community.
Thank you very much, Dr. De Vietri. And if you could please explain to us, in regards to geopolitics, how do women's voices influence geopolitics, and particularly when dealing with the African continent? Have they been heard or not?
Yeah, very few female geopolitical voices have been heard. In fact, the research for today's presentation I've done, there was only very few that stood out. One of them was the late Kenyan Wangari Maathai. She was a black activist and the first black woman to receive a Nobel Prize in 2004. In fact, she was the first and only environmentalist to receive a Nobel Prize since its inception, 853, one environmentalist. We also have the Liberian Laima Bowe, again a very strong activist who, with Helen Sirleaf, who became later president, organised and carried out women's peaceful protests against the Second Liberian War in Liberia, and both received Nobel Prize of Peace for it. In terms of international relations, there are many other women that have influenced state relations. The very big names and the movers and shakers are Margaret Thatcher, Angela Merkel, Suzanne Albright, Condoleezza Rice, just to name a few. Now in Africa you could name, again, President Helen Sirleaf or Joyce Banda, who is standing for for president again in Malawi for this year. There's also the newly elected president of Ethiopia, President Zwede, who was a very strong political figure for many, many years in Ethiopia before becoming president this year, who was very strong and active in creating good relationship in the Horn of Africa, between the countries of the Horn of Africa and with the Maghreb.
Thank you very much, Dr. De Vietri. And if you could please comment on the recent elections in the Democratic Republic of Congo and how the outcome of these elections might impact the future of politics and society in that country?
DRC, a very difficult country and a very difficult question to answer. Now, the inauguration of Tshisekedi as president on the 24th of January is a very small step, maybe in the right direction for DRC. Joseph Kabila has certainly extended his stay for many years, beyond what it should be, and he needed to step down. But it's unfortunate that the coalition that Jean-Pierre Bemba and Moise Katumbi put together in November last year didn't hold together. It fell apart, and Tshisekedi and Vital Kamerhe went their own way. Now the question is, Tshisekedi was elected, but did he win the election? I don't know. The EU is adamant he didn't. The AU came strongly against it, and then retracted, have been very quiet since. The United States have been ambivalent on the question. They applauded Tshisekedi, but on the other hand, they put sanction against the Electoral Commission president and a number of other people in the Electoral Commission for very serious fraud and irregularities in the election process. Now, Martin Fayulu himself is campaigning as the elected president and claims he had 60% of the legal votes and that the 60% of the public are on his side. I think that the people of DRC believe, or maybe I should say think, that they have been duped, but they do not want civil war as in the past. I believe that Tshisekedi should be supported, whatever. And if he's clever and forward-thinking, he will play along with the Kabila and his clan who have the strong majority in the lower house. Now, the Kabilas, for a time, will extract benefits. There's no way that I think that can be avoided, but the benefit for the country will be peace and a continuation of very slow step to the development of the country. Again, DRC is a very difficult country, and it was a very difficult question to put to me.
Oh, you just explained it in a marvelous way. Thank you so much, Dr. De Vietri. And now, wrapping up our interview, if you could please comment on how resource projects, they impact the Horn of Africa, and how it has impacted as well the geopolitics in the region.
Yeah, look, when I first, you sent me those questions yesterday or this morning, and I looked at it and I started looking at specific cases, and then I thought, no, this is the wrong thing to do. If we looked at selected developed countries in the Western world, the USA, the Netherlands, Norway, United Kingdom, and even Australia, they all rose in social, economic, and political power on the back of their resources, of the natural resources, or from the ones they could steal from another country, whether minerals or petroleum or slaves. Now, ideally, this should happen in Africa. African countries have the resources, one of the richest continent piece of ground on the earth. DRC, for example, has an estimated $30 trillion worth of resources in the ground, just the DRC. If it happened in Africa, it would mean that the government would have to take fair take on resources, and not too much, not too little. A fair fiscal terms should be put in place, and good governance, good regulations, and that is sometimes wanting in Africa. Good international relations with neighbours, near and far, with ex-colonial powers, as well as the supranational institutions. I mean, it's a difficult question. Some of it will be answered in my talk, but it's a very complex and very long process to put this together. Yeah.
No, that's perfectly fine. Thank you so much for your remarks.
Flavia, my pleasure.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. And for more information, please visit our website www.internationalaffairs.org.au. Thank you.